Hey guys, another video for the Buying a House in Japan playlist. Some of you might remember this old workshop. When we bought the house about 8 years ago, we found tools scattered all over the place in all the buildings. So we collected all the small tools, all the hand tools, and threw them together in this room in a fairly organised fashion, but it's never really been totally organised or tidy. It was all sort of thrown in here, and we've been using it pretty hard for the last 8 years. And it isn't a priority. This room is not a priority. So there's a couple of people that are always asking about unskilled labourer videos, and there's always little projects going on, but most of them aren't interesting. So this is one of those. It's not really interesting. It's not a big contrast between the beginning of the job and the end of the job, but it is one of the longest projects. 18 months ago we were recycling some metal. Some of you might remember that video. We took a truckload of metal for recycling, and this pump, we tried to get it going a few times and just decided that it was beyond repair. So we decided to recycle the pump. So it was really, really heavy. So it wasn't easy to move. So we just disassembled it, got the unskilled labour in there, gave him a couple of tools, said pull that apart. So just pulled it all apart, and interestingly you might even notice as the parts are coming apart, sand was falling out. So it appears at the bottom of the well there is some sand, and the sand's been sucked up into the pipe and into the pump, which might explain why it stopped working. It's full of sand. So it was shot. So okay, so the pump isn't going to be used anymore. Using electricity to pump water out of a well, sort of, see the sand come out then, sort of strikes us as being not terribly efficient anyway. So we have rainwater that we use. As some of you might remember, we've got a tank for rainwater. So for watering the garden and things like that, we use the rainwater from the tank. So removed the pump, and then the way this is set up here with these two halves, they're concrete, they're really heavy, and definitely didn't want to drop it down the well. That would have been a big hassle to drop that down the well. Never would have got it back, and would have had to make another lid, and it would have been a pain. So it's just, as you can see, it's if you want to open the well for some reason, it's really difficult with the way that's set up. So 12 metres down to the water, and then the water's about 2 metres deep at the moment. So those of you who missed it, we did make a video a while ago, and we lowered a camera and a light right down to the bottom so we could see what the well looks like on the sides. It's quite interesting actually. Those of you who haven't seen that video, search well in the search box and you'll get it. So I put a light and a camera down all the way to the bottom. So 12 metres to the water and then 2 metres deep. So if that big concrete lid dropped down there, we wouldn't be getting it back. So this seemed like a good solution. The other problem we had was there's a gap between, as you can see, where the lid is and the wall, and then it's sort of a tin cover outside, but there's a bit of a gap, and we had found a snake in this room. So one of the projects was to snake proof the room. So with it set up like that now, we could then seal that back half between it and the wall. So two reasons. One is to seal the room up, because in winter when it's windy and cold and blowy, you know, any sort of gap like that's going to let wind in. It wouldn't let rain in. There was a cover on the outside, but it was letting the wind in and snakes in. So we figured seal up the room around the well, and then there's a corner over there that needed doing, and a couple other places around the room where we thought a snake might be able to get in. So I sorted all that. So some of you guys remember we're pretty stingy with what we spend on the house, because there's a good chance that later on down the line it will get demolished, because that's what happens to old places in Japan. People don't want to buy old houses like this. So we always have very small budgets on our jobs. The budget on this job was zero. So whatever we did in this room, we wanted to do it for zero. So that wall there, as you can see, is one of those old mud walls, in pretty good condition. But down where the sink is there, it was sort of getting splashed with water and it was damaging it. So I had to do something with that. So we did have some sealant left from another job, from a very old job actually, a long time ago. So you can see it sort of looks like milk, but it's specially it's a sealant especially for these mud walls. And We know that it works, otherwise you wouldn't trust it. It goes on like milk. It's really weird. But we've used it before, and it's the stuff. It's brilliant. You put this stuff on, and as thickly as you can, we find. Really lay it on thick, make it really, really wet. And then 24 hours later you come back and it goes from being a mud wall, which feels like you expect a mud wall to feel like, to sealing it really well and makes it gives it a hard coating. And it works really well. So as much as this as you can lay on. So we had half a bottle of it there still, so lots of it left from another job. So we just laid it on as thick as we could. Just let it soak in. Weird stuff. It feels weird. Imagine using a roller, a wet roller of milk on a mud wall. It's just what it feels like. And some of the gritty stuff, the sandy stuff on the wall will always come off when you do that too. It's a weird thing. Those of you who haven't painted mud walls with milk will just have to imagine what it's like. It's pretty weird. So then we also had this bottle. You see, bits of paint we have left over from jobs, we keep them in bottles because we find that it lasts better that way. If you leave it in the can, that seems to dry out and harden up. So we put them in these bottles, and it seems to keep them longer. That paint's pretty old, been in that bottle. Unseal the bottle and pour it out. Also makes it really easy to use then, rather than those old cans, you know, the lids on the cans get really dodgy. Whereas the bottle, just open the lid, pour it into the tray, and off you go. So that's paint left over from another job. So again, zero budget, spending no money on this. And we don't have enough paint to do the whole room. So we're just doing this corner, because it's that corner around that basin that's sort of wanting to protect, and a little bit around the window there, because that window does get left open sometimes to let air in and things in summer. So just going to do this corner. The idea is, while that corner's free, all the stuff's off the shelf, the corner's free, okay, it's a good time to do it. So do the whole corner with that paint, figuring that it'll run out somewhere along the line. And then in the future, when we've got paint left over from another job, we'll use it in here. So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter whether it gets painted in here or not, but just to protect around that basin. And then what the heck, if we've got spare paint, just to liven the room up a bit, because we do spend a bit of time in this one. Well, someone does. The unskilled labourer does. Nobody else does. So it looks a bit better, and it will protect it. That's the main thing around that basin there. It kept getting splashed. It was inevitable. It was going to get worse. Bit of brown, just because there was some brown left. So you might remember, that's how that front door job started. There was a couple of cans of brown. This one wasn't really of any use anymore because it was from another job, but the other brown was the one that matched the doors. That's how that front door job got started. Happy with that too. Every time we look at that front door now, I come and go through that door all the time. Looks much better. So time to sort the tools out. Try and put them in some sort of order where the plumbing stuff goes together and the electrical stuff goes together, and that kid stuff, enough of that kid stuff tripping over that. So put out again, all recycled stuff. So there's a bit of wood left over, a bit of board left over from another job. So starting a shadow board there with the tools that get used all the time. And then tools that should be in the machine shed at the back with the big machines, with the drop saw and the compressors and the bigger tools, power saws and stuff. So some tools got brought out here and sorted out a little bit. It's one thing leads to another, doesn't it? And of course that second room you saw there briefly was the material room, where we keep all the materials. So it's sort of like a hardware store is the way we see it. All the wood and plumbing and cable and all the materials that might be used in future jobs. Bags of cement and all sorts of stuff get kept in that room. So lots of stuff got taken there as well. Because it's like, am I going to use this in the next 12 months? Probably not. All right, it goes out there. Some of the bigger tools in the machinery shed. And then these are all the hand tools. This is the sort of stuff that gets used in this room all the time. So I thought a shadow board would sort it all out. We can see exactly what we've got and keep track of it all and have it all there, easy to get hands on when it's required. So again, until now, zero money spent. That's what we want to see. So some of you might remember too, just about all these tools, except that battery drill and that box that's got screws in it, pretty much all the tools that you'll see were left here by the old man. Those of you who didn't see the old videos when we first got this place might want to check them out, because we had 10 tons of stuff in the house, and in amongst it was loads of tools, and you might remember 2 or 3 of everything. So just amazing the amount of tools that were here, and they've been absolutely excellent. All these projects we've done over the last 8 years, so many of them have been done with his tools, and we've bought very little in the way of tools, mostly just materials, very little in the way of tools. So if you pay attention here, the unskilled labourer was showing his lack of skill here. You'll see things falling down. We're sort of a bit tired. It was been a bit of a busy week, and a lot of these jobs, all the jobs that you've seen here, are getting done between other things that are more important. Because doing this workshop was, as far as time and money were concerned, was low priority. So the time was being spent when there was a little bit of free time between other things, and no money was being spent. Oh, so this is a rainy day. That room's really nice because of the mud walls. The mud walls are an excellent insulator, and the rooms stay a nice temperature. The rooms that are surrounded by mud walls stay a really nice temperature, and really interesting, on rainy days it doesn't get wet and clammy. There's something about the mud walls and the wood floors in the main house, the wood floors and the mud walls. You don't seem to get that sticky clamminess in rainy weather. So it's really cozy in there. That's what I was trying to show you there. It's really cozy in there on a rainy day, or at night, or a windy day, or whatever. Just close that glass door so the light can still come in, and it's really quite pleasant in that room. So you can see it's looking better. Now there's just that to sort out. So just took everything off the shelves. The shelves are a bit rusty. It's one of the old man's old shelving units, so just covered them with some cloth. So that's the before and after, guys. There's the before. That's what it looked like when we started this job. Sort of messy and cluttery. So that was 18 months ago now. That was a year and a half ago. So from a viewer's perspective, this is probably one of our least impressive before and afters, because it's not a huge difference just the way it looks, but from a practical point of view it is huge, because we can lay our hands on the things that we want to find much easier, and it's been like a big stock take. We now know what's in there, which has made it useful as well. We know what things we have available to us, and what things we don't have to buy because they're already there if we need some part or some piece. All the plumbing stuff's in one position, all the electrical stuff's in another. So much more organised, much neater, much cleaner, because everything got cleaned while this was happening, of course. Never had a shadow board before. What a handy thing that is. So much quicker, rather than going through where's that thing looking in a box somewhere, is just reach out and grab it off the wall and then stick it back up there again. Brilliant system. So threw very little away. Not much got thrown away at all. Just a couple of small things that weren't of any use got thrown away, but everything else went either into that material room or in the machinery shed, or was left here, because this is where it'll get used. So the longest job we've done, the least spectacular job we've done, but a worthwhile one from our point of view. Very worthwhile doing. So some people ask, there's a couple of people always asking what's going on at the old farmhouse. Well, that's been going on. A lot of other stuff like that we just don't bother to show you because it's just not interesting. But that's for those 2 people who enjoy these videos. There it was. And again, very cozy at night in there it is. Very nice on these cold winter nights. Anyway, there it was. More videos coming soon.